Hi, Potomac students and faculty. Me and Evelina are here today for the Potomac Pulse, interviewing all of our committed senior athletes, Catherine Hyman, Katie Gould, Emma Mansfield, and Nikki. And we're just going to ask them a couple questions about the recruiting process and any advice that they have for underclassmen or athletes who want to pursue college athletics. So first, we're just going to ask you guys, what was the recruiting process like? So just any showcases you guys did, any trips you had, or meetings with coaches that were just important.
Well, for track specifically, we don't have really any showcases. It's more based on your times. And of course, there are huge meets like nationals and everything where a lot of college coaches come to watch. But what I did was I sent out my grades and my times and some videos of me running to coaches and filled out some questionnaires and then set up phone calls and visited them in person when I toured the campus before I ultimately chose my final four that I ended up going on official visits at.
Okay.
Yeah, swimming is pretty much exactly like track. There aren't really showcases. They're, again, big meets, but for the most part, it's kind of you have the times or you don't. And so similar to Catherine, I kind of made a huge list of schools, I think probably at the end of sophomore year, and then kind of figured out where I fell within their team and then also where I fell at the school, like academically. And so kind of doing that was how I started. And then again, I reached out to coaches and found different people that I connected more with or different schools that I connected more with. And then that kind of narrowed it down until the ones that I took official visits at until I made my decision. But yeah.
So for soccer, you have obviously your league games, and then each season you have like anywhere from like 1 to 4 showcases. And then there's also nationals at the end if you qualify for that. So at these showcases, there are hundreds of coaches just walking around, and they can just stop at whatever game and watch. And prior to these showcases, I want to say the summer going into my sophomore year, I created a resume and sent out an email to all the schools I was interested in, just so I could get kind of a line of communication with them and kind of get on their radar. So when I was at these showcases, they would know to look out for me. And then just kind of being cognizant that you're communicating well, and not just reaching out once and kind of forgetting about it, because it does make an impression on them if you're consistent.
Also, just like I feel like going off of Nikki's point, a lot of the demonstrated interest comes from not just showcases, but like if you go to ID camps. So like you can go to the campuses beforehand and the coaches will have like with actual players on the team, like 1 to 2 day camps. Sometimes they're just a few hours, but like actually being able to get yourself on campus in front of the coaches in like their own school environment is super important because it just shows them how interested you are in the school.
Following up to that, both is kind of a two-part question, but what was the biggest selling point as far as you committing to the specific school that you chose? And then how difficult was that decision?
Well, for me, I had a really hard time choosing between 2 or 3 schools at the end because a lot of I had a great time on all my visits, and a lot of them were similar levels of track and academics. So it was basically more seeing where I saw myself, like what school I felt was the best fit for myself. And ultimately, Princeton has a major that I think I want to pursue, and I was in contact with that coach since I think October of my junior year, and he really made an effort to keep talking to me, and I really liked him, so that's basically why I chose it, Princeton.
Yeah, I feel like I keep like repeating like it's the same thing as Catherine, but I feel like swimming and track are pretty much like pretty similar sports in terms of recruiting. But yeah, a lot of the schools that I guess my final choices were all pretty similar schools in terms of, well, I was obviously looking for a school that was going to be a challenge academically, and so they were all pretty competitive academically. And then in terms of swimming, there were some schools that that I fit in a little bit differently on their teams, but it was generally the same. And so it kind of came down to where I felt like I fit in and where I would kind of really love to spend time there. So, yeah.
For me, I think kind of going off of Catherine and Katie's point, a lot of the schools that I was deciding on were kind of academically and soccer-wise the same. So it really comes down to like how you feel about the community and the campus and kind of the more personal aspect of it all. So for me, I had visited, even like before my whole like recruiting process, I had visited the campus with my brother when he was going through his recruiting kind of journey when I was in like 8th grade. And that's when I initially like really fell in love with the people in the community. And so like kind of throughout my whole process, I'd always kind of kept that in the back of my mind. So I think like before you make a decision, it's really important to go on a visit or at least just like see the campus, because for some people you can show up and in your head it sounds really great, but once you get there you're like, I don't see myself here. So
Yeah, like I think for me, mine was pretty similar to Nikki's experience. Like I think it's really important to be able to get yourself on campus, because you could think something of a school and then actually get there and it's completely different than what you first imagined it to be. And so I think for me, like campus life was really important, and just like how communicative you are like with professors, and like getting to go to classes with like players and getting to see like practices, but just also like for me, like academics was always like foremost, like the most important. And so I think just being able to prioritize like your values and what you're looking for in a school, and then being able to narrow it down is super important.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Do you guys have any advice for younger players that might be interested in playing in college?
I feel like the first thing that comes to mind is make sure you love the school even without the sport, because you never really know what's going to happen. You don't know if you might get injured or something else might happen. And so I think it's important to make sure that you don't forget that you're going to school. And so it's so important to love that community and be really interested in all the academics that they have to offer there, and not just like, I'm so excited to play a sport here.
yeah, going off of that, in terms of like getting recruited and just having options that you're happy about, I think it's a very linear process in the fact that you get out what you put in. So whatever sport you play, like it's really important that you don't just do like what's required of you and just like go to practice, like show up at games. Like you have to like actually want it and do things outside of just like what's expected of you, like go to extra practices, like do extra like individual trainings to really like show that you're dedicated, because these coaches like notice those small differences between like one player who like does a little bit more than like the other. So yeah.
I would also say just like to not get discouraged, because like it is a long process and like everyone's process is different. So like try not to compare yourself to other people, because everyone goes through something of their own. And so like I think for every like low point there's going to be a high, and just like really to keep your head up. Like everyone is always saying like that phrase, like trust the process. And like while it may seem like really cliche and just kind of like very annoying during the whole thing, I would really just like focus on yourself and like try and figure out what's best for you, and not to like compare yourself to other people.
Yeah, kind of going off of what Emma said, I think it's important to sort of cast a wide net in terms of the schools that you're looking at and talking to, because at the beginning of my process, I mean, I wasn't really sure, but I had some schools that I was really thinking about I could see myself going to and everything. And at the end, my final few were completely different than those schools. And it's just about getting to know the program and the coaches, and things might not work out as you had maybe hoped, but honestly, you're going to end up somewhere where you're going to be really happy. So
I feel like this is kind of like the opposite of what Emma and Catherine said. And I think like it's really, really important that you don't get discouraged, but kind of on the flip side, make sure that you're not getting caught up in like schools or coaches saying that they're really, really interested in you, because you kind of have to take it like with a grain of salt, and you don't really know what they're saying to like everyone else. So don't get discouraged if it's not kind of what you wanted to hear, but also I would advise people probably to not make a decision just because it feels really great that these coaches like really want you or something like that.
Right, like keep your options open for as
Yeah.
long as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Is there a point that you guys knew that you really wanted to play in college and pursue your specific sport, or was it more of just, oh, I'm just going to keep playing in high school, and then, oh, time for me to like look at colleges?
I started becoming really serious about track when I entered high school. My middle school didn't really have a track program. So freshman year, I had a lot of success, and then I started thinking about it. My coach had a lot of confidence in me. And so that sort of kind of put it in the back of my head, like maybe I'll want to play in college. And then I think sophomore year, I began taking it more seriously because I saw my potential, and I started to compare my times with times of people on the college teams and the recruiting standards and everything. And then I saw that it could help me get into a really good school, and that made me excited.
I would say it wasn't like I don't think there was ever a moment where I was like, oh, like I think I'm gonna play like college sports. It was kind of just a progression, and like I started out when I was like really young, and I just kept playing every year and enjoying it until eventually at one point it was either in like 8th grade or maybe even before that, where it was just kind of like there wasn't even a question of like not playing, because I couldn't like picture myself just like going off to school and just like not playing the sport anymore. And it wasn't like, oh, I know I want to go to this school, but it was just like, I know I want to keep doing this for me.
Yeah, I feel like after you've played for so long, it's just kind of like it's a given at one point, like you're gonna want to do it in college. And so like for me, it's like exact same as Nikki, like freshman year, you're kind of just like you're just gonna continue it, and you're just gonna want to continue it through college. So that was kind of like the set point for me.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same for me as well. It's just been kind of like a progression. It was just kind of the next step, and I couldn't really see myself stopping after high school. But yeah.
Tommy, you want the last one?
Yeah, sure. So final question. I know some of you guys are playing fall sports. So do you know yet whether or not those will be affected by the coronavirus and how that's affecting an extra year of eligibility for other players?
Or
Just
have
like-
any of your coaches reached out and possibly warned you of what might happen if your season has to get canceled?
For me, I'm a fall sport, and I had a call with my coaches a couple days ago, and basically it's kind of what we've been hearing from everyone, that nobody really knows what's happening at this point. There's a lot of unknowns. As of now, like nothing's canceled. They're still kind of planning for the season to happen just in case, because if it does, like we want to be prepared. So there's like obviously fitness and training that we're supposed to be doing on our own time. And then in terms of like getting back to us, I'm sure it will be at some point in the near future once there's a decision. But as of now, we're still planning to, have a season and everything.
Yeah, I mean, like for the fall right now for our school, like as of now, like our coaches have said, like nothing has changed. But just to Nikki's point, everything is really up in the air at this point because, something could change pretty quickly in the next coming weeks for better, for worse. And so I think right now everyone's kind of just trying to focus on getting prepared for the season regardless, with fitness packets, with outside of practice training now that all clubs and programs are canceled pretty much. So I think it's just really focusing on yourself to best prepare like there's going to be a season.
Yeah, with swimming, I mean, it's a winter sport, and so we haven't really been told anything even about like school starting on time in the fall or anything like that. So we're just kind of waiting for more information, hoping for the best. But with swimming, I guess it's a little bit different because you can't really do it at home. And so it's kind of the best thing you can do is just make sure you are in good shape in general, even if it's not in the water, just making sure you're still working out and staying on top of it so that when you get back to the water, it'll be a little bit better. you can kind of work on different things, like strength training or kind of aerobic stuff. But
Yeah, so I'm not a cross country runner. I just do indoor and outdoor track. So thankfully, if schools push back, I hopefully will still have my season. But my coach has been talking to us a lot. I think since he's not coaching the current team, he's able to reach out more to the incoming freshmen for next year. So we've been Zooming me and all the other new sprinters like once a week, and he's going through his training plan and stuff, and that's really interesting for me. So I think that's one good thing that's coming out of all this.
Thank you guys so much for your time, and I speak for the whole Potomac community when I say that we're really excited to see you guys play your sports next year. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Of course.